Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. Again, my name is Miguel Valenzuela, and today we bring you guys somebody very, very special. Today we bring you Claudia Ornelas, and she's interesting to me, and I wanted to talk to her for quite a while, actually, because she is a counselor, and she's a counselor here at EPCC. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Thank you for the invite to be here. It's a pleasure to be here.
And maybe you could clear up. You're not just a counselor.
Yes. Well, like Miguel was saying here, I'm a licensed professional counselor. So meaning that I can do therapy, it's mental health therapy. And now I'm here at EPCC. Our program is called EPCC Cares. And so this is free mental health services for students. So it's actual therapy. Like if they go to someone in the community for professional services, that's exactly what we do. So it's professional counseling, and we're licensed by the state. And so our services are confidential, just like with any other provider.
And is that something new here at EPCC?
It is relatively new. The program has been open for 2 years. The first year it was more about the planning and development of the program, and so at the beginning there was only two clinicians, one full time, and so now it's 6 of us. You know,
wow,
we've
okay.
grown in the last semester, and so it's 6 of us, and we are doing in-person therapy, and we can also do telehealth, but it's relatively new.
And as a counselor now, was that something that you always wanted to do when you were a kid? And were you like a counselor for your friends, or as a little child, were you like counseling people? How did that come about?
That's a very good question. I guess we all sometimes ask that question at some point, and so I think somehow I think this is what I was born to do. It's easy to connect with people. People come and tell me all sorts of stories, even without me asking questions. So I guess it's something also like part of my personality sometimes. But the reason that I started being interested in psychology is something that I think a lot of people share with me. I was interested in why do serial killers do what they do, and so that's how I started questioning. There has to be something that guides our behavior. Why do we do what we do?
Right.
And so that's how I started reading about this. And eventually, when I was older, I went back to school and I got into psychology.
And psychology for you is exactly what? Because there are people that do maybe psychology that go into different fields. What is psychology for you? And maybe you can explain to us the different fields that other people go into as psychologists.
Yes. That's a really good question too, because I think there's this misconception that people in psychology are all clinicians seeing people for therapy, and psychology is, there are so many fields, so many different fields. So it can be like forensic psychology, which is probably one of the newest. And there's also health psychology, for example. In health psychology, they do a lot of research. It's mainly research on cancer, how to prevent diabetes, how to work with people to motivate them to take their medications, or industrial psychology, working for businesses to increase productivity. So psychology is very wide. In our program here at EPCC Cares, we have counselors and social workers. So we are licensed at the master's level. And so in this case, my master's is in psychology, but I took some extra courses to be licensed as a professional counselor. So
and what exactly does that mean, a professional counselor? Does that mean that you are an individual that can work with people on a higher level, or does that not matter at some point?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, because you say a licensed professional, right? When you're a licensed professional, are you an individual that can literally speak to people and talk to them about how they're feeling and what they do, and somebody who isn't a professional cannot do that, or how does that work?
Oh, that's a really good question too. So if we're not licensed, you cannot practice therapy. You have to be licensed by the state because you have to meet certain requirements. And over the years, also to maintain your licensure, you have to take, of course, continuing education courses. And so someone who has a bachelor's degree, for example, in social work or even in psychology cannot do therapy. There are other ways that you can still help, like a peer support specialist, taking some certification. But ours is a license. So in a way, to use the words that you were using, it's higher level in that sense. So you meet the requirements by the state in terms of practice. You have to do 3,000 hours of practice even after you receive your license as an associate, an LPC associate. So it's a lot of practice before you're independent.
Yeah, because you have to learn how to understand people. I think that empathy is one of the most important aspects of what you do. Can you explain to us, maybe with a scenario, how is it that you literally help people? Because I know that there's a lot of people out there that want help and that maybe are thinking of getting help, but they're like, you know what, I'm not sure how this works. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, of course. So the way that it works, of course, we wait for people to come to us. If you're working at an agency or you're working even privately, of course, you wait for people to request services.
Right.
And so usually if we request counseling or therapy, then we have to fill out some paperwork, just like when we go to see a medical doctor. And so in that paperwork, there's going to be always a question that says, like, what brings you here, or what is the problem? What do you consider a problem now? And so we take it from there. Once we see you for the first time, we do what is called an initial assessment. And so that's where we get background information. What's happening now, but also what has happened before.
Because it's a long process, I think. You don't just end up like this, right?
Exactly.
Go on.
Exactly. So we want to know, like, if we're here now, if this is a problem now, what happened before that maybe this problem developed? Or sometimes there's nothing in the past, but this is happening now. Okay, that's fine. But we do want to know a little bit of that background information, even to rule out maybe that there's a medical problem that can be causing this.
That's interesting.
So sometimes it may be something hormonal, for example. There's something that is happening physiologically that is creating the problem that we're seeing. For instance, like sometimes if there are imbalances in some of the glands that regulate hormones, like the thyroid, for example, then we're going to be experiencing anxiety or even depression. So it is correlated sometimes. And so we want to be able to say, okay, let's try to rule this out. Because especially in those situations where the person says, I've always been very healthy, I had never felt anxious, and now all of a sudden I'm gaining weight, and then I feel irritated too, I feel anxious. So it sounds like a hormonal problem.
Right.
And sometimes they may say, I haven't seen a doctor in 2 years. So all of those are red flags that maybe something is going on.
And then when you get to that point, how is it that you can literally help people? I know that part of it is the empathy, right? You need to gather information and kind of put yourself at a certain level where you can understand them. And then so they can also feel that you're understanding them, right?
Yes.
But then what are some of the tools that you guys use? Because I know that everybody's different, right? You cannot use the same tool with me as you can use with somebody else.
Yes.
Give us a couple of examples, because I think that if people start to understand where you're coming from and how you do it, they'll be more apt to want to seek help.
Yes, of course.
And then maybe one other thing before, sorry for interrupting you, maybe you can incorporate the whole out-of-the-box thinking, because I know that every time that you try to help somebody, it's always different.
Yes. So sometimes that's a part of the creative part in doing therapy. We say, and I probably, like if you've read about therapy, it says that it's an art. Because of course, for us to meet those requirements to be licensed, we have to take classes. We know about different interventions. But we also have to be creative in the sense of, okay, this is what Miguel is telling me, and this is what he wants to accomplish. How can I put together all these tools that I have here to help Miguel? Because maybe there's another person who has a similar problem, but that person wants to accomplish something different.
Oh, okay.
I'm still going to use the same tools, but maybe combine them in a different way to be able to help the person individually.
I love that you use the word art. It absolutely is. And that's one of the things that I've talked about a lot in this show, is how there is art in everything that we do. And I appreciate the fact that you made the example of, as an artist, I would use tools like paintbrushes, paint, a palette, a canvas to paint on, my mind. But we don't generally associate it to anything like psychology or architecture or being a police officer, for example. So the tools that you have are elements and ways to help people, and you would use those tools in different ways, right?
Yes.
What is one specific tool that you can show us right now? Maybe not like actually show us,
Right.
but give us an example of that has helped people, something that'll maybe help people calm themselves.
Yes. So, for example, in working with teenagers or younger people, usually, when they use art, painting, drawing, they already bring that strength to therapy.
Okay.
If they tell me, how I was mentioning about the initial assessments. So if I ask what's something that is helping you now, if they say drawing helps me to relax,
Okay.
I keep that in my mind and I say, okay, I already have, or he or this person has one tool that I can complement with what I can do. What I know how to do. So, for example, if the person says, well, this is what happened before, and it sounds like a trauma, there's something traumatic in this person's life, I'm going to think of how can I help this person to process the traumatic experience that is creating the anxiety and probably even the depression. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably use an intervention, let's say cognitive behavioral therapy. But in order for me to help that person to process the thoughts about the event that was traumatic,
Right.
I also need to help this person to relax, right? To learn how to relax, to free their brain and be able to think and process the event. So I already know that Miguel likes to draw because it helps to relax. So let's practice relaxation more before we can go deeper into the events that happen and what you're thinking about the events. And so that's one way that I would complement the skill that Miguel has for drawing into the therapy.
And this helps people in which way? Are you trying to help them better manage these things that they're dealing with? Or is it more a hormonal thing? Is it a mental thing? What is it exactly? Or is it different for everybody? I don't know.
Yes. No, actually, it's a combination of all those things that you mentioned. There is this that is called a biopsychosocial model of whatever is presenting. So let's say if it's anxiety, it's in the center. And we have these three factors feeding into the anxiety or variables feeding into the anxiety.
And the center doesn't always have to be the same?
No.
Okay,
So it can
on.
be anxiety, it can be depression, it can be even motivation. It doesn't have to be something negative.
Right.
Right? If we think of how am I this motivated to do this? So we can measure and see what variables are contributing to my motivation. So it can be something positive. And so, but let's say if we consider a problem and it is anxiety, then we may think of, okay, whenever I think of this that happened, right? Like let's say if it was an accident, whenever I think of the accident, my body tenses. And so the thinking comes from the psychology area. The tensing of the body comes from the biological area because of the stress hormones.
Right.
And then now that's combined, and maybe here in the social area, those are the three areas: biology, psychology, and social cultural. So the social area now is affected too because I'm avoiding situations that have to do with a reminder of the accident.
Right.
So that creates relational problems. And so in the initial assessment, sometimes we're able to identify those variables that are contributing to the problem, in this case, the anxiety. And that's where we say, okay, I'm thinking the anxiety is the problem, and Miguel told me that he's good at drawing. Can we create maybe a schedule where Miguel can draw every day to start lowering the anxiety?
And everybody has their own tools.
Yes.
Available to them, right?
Yes.
For some people, it may be woodworking.
Yes.
For some people, it may be driving, taking a drive or whatever.
Most people are going to mention or at least one thing that is already helping.
So they'll say, hey, you know what? I feel stressed, but then I go out and drive for 10 minutes, look at some trees, go to the park, and that helps me. So maybe you can help them by allowing them to do that a little bit more, or working it into the way that you help them specifically. When you think about helping people, is that something that you've always had inside of you? Because I think me as an individual, I never thought of becoming a professor. And now I sit here and teach, I have the show, and I do a lot of things, but I'm always teaching. That wasn't my thing. When I was younger, my instructors, my teachers were not that good to me. So I was like, I don't want to be them. They're not cool, right? Was that something that you've always had within you?
That I wanted to help people?
Yeah. Have you always been that helper?
No, this is so interesting, Miguel. Like you asked me at the beginning what brought me into psychology.
Right.
But even though I was interested in why do we do what we do, I didn't want to do therapy.
Really?
I did not want to do therapy.
So tell us.
And so that's
interesting.
So that's why I went into psychology. And so I thought if I do psychology, then I can just do research. I can be like in the back doing research about mental health, but not treat any conditions, right? Not do therapy.
Was there a specific moment where that switched?
Yes, I was forced
Tell
to
us.
start.
Tell us.
Because
me too.
Yes.
Me too. When I was in grad school, I was told, you need to teach a class as a TA. I'm like, I'm not interested.
Right.
I don't want to teach anybody anything. Yeah, it's not my thing. That's not what I'm looking for, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not going to graduate. I said, okay, where's my classroom? Tell me, guide me, and I'll be there. I want to graduate, right? So then I was kind of forced into it too, and I love it. I love it.
So that's exactly what happened.
Tell me.
It's exactly what happened. So in grad school, but because I was in the clinical psychology, I applied to the program is called experimental psychology.
Okay.
So I wanted to do research.
Mean? Oh, research. Okay, go on.
So you do experiments, but I was accepted into the clinical psychology program,
really, which is totally different.
And so I saw the letter of acceptance and said, should I do this? Like, I don't want to do therapy.
They must have seen something in you.
I don't know, but then I said, okay, I'm already accepted. I know that it's harder to get into clinical programs, so I'll just do it and see what happens. So of course, I started taking all the coursework, and then the time came where I had to do my internship. And I still tried to stay away from therapy. I started doing an internship to do the assessments, for like developmental conditions, ADHD, and all of that, because then that doesn't require therapy.
Okay.
You just do the test and help writing the reports. But then something happened, where my supervisor passed away, and so I was in the middle of the semester, and I had to find another site to finish my internship. And the only site that I could find in the middle of a semester was a clinical site. And so I started.
And there you literally had to see people, talk to them.
Exactly. Yes.
But what happened? What was the experience like? What literally drew you in,
there.
Yeah. Because you could have gone and been like, forget this, I hate it.
Yes. No, well, I said, I'm close to graduating. I'll just try it and see how it goes. I'm not going to stop just because I have to do a clinical internship. So even at that point, I was still thinking, I'm just going to do my internship so that I can graduate and then move on with something else. But then I started doing therapy, and I still remember the first person that I saw in therapy.
Really?
So that person was going through suicidal ideation, and it was a young person. And I remember that, she connected really well. She started doing better, and then I started thinking, that's where the self-awareness comes to.
Right.
Where I started thinking, maybe it sounds like, there's something that I can do. It's very rewarding. And I thought, this is more, it seems natural to me. I didn't think that it was going to be that natural to me. And I just started loving the fact that people tell you, this was really helpful, or you see the change. And so I just love what I do.
So do you think part of that's why I do what I do too now. Do you think part of that is your, I guess, chemically speaking, endorphins coming into play and saying, wow, you know what, I feel good. It's like after you eat a chocolate bar or something or an ice cream. And do you think that's at least a little bit of what kept you going? Yes.
Well, it's all of it. It's all of it, because of course, if you talk to therapists or counselors, anyone who has to document sessions and anything that you do with someone, then they are going to tell you, I hate documentation. I don't like the administrative part, but we love what we do in working with people, and it's very, very rewarding.
And that's an interesting thing. That's why I do what I do too. At the end of my semesters, I usually ask my students to give me like a little critique. What did you guys learn in my class? But I really allow them to focus more broadly. I don't tell them, how did you think? What did you think of the class specifically? how is this class going to help you for the rest of your life? And when I read what they say, I'm amazed. I'm like, how in the world does me talking about art appreciation, incorporating, works of art and styles and all of that, how does that really help people? And that's where I really started to understand that I'm here for a specific reason, to help people, do bigger and better things, grander things, and to help them feel better about themselves. I'm not an art therapist by any means, but it does help them. How do you guys incorporate art into what you guys do specifically?
Well, there's an intervention. It's art therapy. I'm not trained in art therapy. It's usually utilized with children most of the time, not all the time. It's not exclusive to children, but I'm not trained in it. But it is creating art, different art expressions to be able to process the problem that is happening. And so, but even if you're not doing art therapy, remember how I said that we can be very eclectic, and I think most of us clinicians are very eclectic. So we're going to probably use different exercises that do require art into another modality to help the person move probably a little bit easier in processing what is going on. And so, but it can be drawing a simple picture. Sometimes even, for example, in trauma processing, people may bring pictures of a person or a place, whatever it is, and then looking at the picture, the person is going to describe what they think, how is this picture a trigger, the image, what are the thoughts, the feelings, because something tangible is going to really bring the response, even physiologically. Remember how I said about the biopsychosocial model? So by looking at the actual picture, the person is going to say, I know what I'm noticing, that I'm getting tense just by looking at this person. It's triggering all these memories. So it's one way to use art, or sometimes people can draw what's in their minds and process at the same time. But art therapy, it's an actual intervention, and people are trained and they get a certification to be an art therapist.
In order to help individuals.
Exactly, yes.
Another thing you mentioned was physiologically speaking. Can you tell us what types of chemicals help us and what types of chemicals don't help us? And what else is in between there? And is there a way for us to, at least begin to manage these?
Yes, of course. So there are different, all these chemicals or the different neurotransmitters, right? They are called neurotransmitters, are the ones that are in our nervous system. And on the other side, we also have hormones. So those are part of our endocrine system. But they work together. And so what happens, for example, in human touch, for example, is something that can help us. A hug, sometimes we don't know what to say, but you mentioned empathy. If we want to show empathy, we can just give a hug to someone. And by having that physical contact, the brain of even both individuals is going to release more oxytocin, for example. And so we call it the bonding hormone because it feels good. If it's comforting. Or, for example, like if we think of serotonin, like commercials on TV when they talk about antidepressants. When they talk about antidepressants and they say, it helps to increase serotonin levels, something like that in the commercials. So because serotonin is a neurotransmitter that lifts our mood, so it helps us to feel better. So chocolate, for example, helps to lift serotonin levels, but we would have to eat tons of chocolate to have the same.
I was going to say, wasn't everybody just eating chocolate all day long?
So it can create, more like that momentary feeling, of pleasure, but the antidepressants are the ones that help to balance the levels of serotonin in the brain. When we see, for example, schizophrenia, schizophrenia is caused because there's an excessive release of dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is another neurotransmitter, and so the person may start hearing or seeing things that are not there. And so the medication is going to help also to level those chemicals.
So then people can maybe start imagining or hearing things because the level is so high that everything is enhanced?
Right, yeah. And it feels normal, that's why they really see those, they really hear those voices. But it's something chemical, right? It's a biological. And so there are some conditions that are probably going to be better managed with a combination of medication and therapy.
There's a release of endorphins when you create artwork.
Yes.
What exactly is an endorphin?
Endorphin, okay, so endorphins is the same, right? Endorphins are going to work also with dopamine. Dopamine is also another one of those chemicals, neurotransmitters that helps in our system to feel rewarded. And so when people are gambling or if we run, anything that creates that the excitement that we feel, so you see how excitement is a feeling, it's an emotion, but it is produced by the chemicals in our body. So exactly, yes, endorphins, like if they see this art that they created or even in the process, we start building those chemicals in our body, yes.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is very interesting.
And that chemical is associated with the brain as well?
Yes.
Or is the brain releasing those chemicals?
Yes.
Or how does
so
that work?
there are glands, in our brain that are going to release those chemicals, right? Or in the nervous system, is in the neurons. Of course, they communicate with each other, and that's how serotonin, dopamine, all those neurotransmitters travel from one neuron to another. They communicate. So sometimes, for example, and this would, we would go into other areas, substance use, for example, it can damage some of those receptors in the neurons. So sometimes serotonin, for example, is not going to be absorbed because the receptors now are damaged or not even produced in the brain. And so with meth, for example, it damages those receptors. And
which is very unfortunate because a lot of people that go through drug abuse and things like that, it's a process to get out of that, right? So thank God individuals like yourself are here to help us in that way. We very, very quickly run out of time in our show because the conversations are just wonderful. But I want to ask you, what do you have in the future very quickly? Are you going to stay here and help us out a lot? What's going on?
Well, I plan to stay here as long as I can and help the students. Just don't forget, where EPCC Cares, free mental health for students. We can do therapy. We can also help them find social services in the community, housing, food, anything. We can help find those resources.
So it's not just one-faceted, it's multifaceted.
Yes, it is. And it's free of charge as long as students are enrolled in classes, they qualify for the services. And you can call our phone number in our main office is 831-831-3222. And you can visit any of the offices.
And you guys have one at every campus?
We are in person at Valle Verde, at Mission del Paso, and Northwest campus. But we can do also telehealth. So if you cannot come to one of our campus, then you can just call our office, again, 915-831-3222, and they can schedule an appointment for telehealth. Okay,
beautiful. So I want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you, because for me, you've enlightened me in many ways, how I can now comprehend chemicals a little bit differently. I think anyways, that I can even talk to my children a little bit better. So I want to thank you, and hopefully you will help the audience that is watching us here through our show. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here.
Great. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you guys for watching. Again, my name is Miguel Valenzuela, and if you guys want to contact me, you guys can contact me at mvalen31@epcc.edu. You guys can see us on Instagram, and you guys can see us on YouTube. If any of you guys know anybody that I might want to interview, please let me know, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.